You are listening to the Fresh Take Network.
What it is, what it do? Welcome to Fresh Take, the Rundown. Joshua Adam William Arbuthnot with the talented, sexy, dangerous Devaneer. The name's Devin. Remember it.
Pretty simple.
So X-Men 97 has came. It has left our lives, and it has left a huge hole wanting more in our lives.
Well, it tackles something that's really important to Marvel properties as a whole, or I guess any of these kind of nerd franchises, if you will, and it's intentionality. It's having a plan from the very beginning and sticking to that plan. It's giving us pieces of information throughout the show or the airtime that make us feel like we've seen cool things, we were heard as an audience, and then they get to follow up on that, and they subvert our expectations. That's exactly what made something like Iron Man such a hit, and the payoff for Avengers, whether or not we like that as a movie very much, such a strong impact in our lives, because a movie with Robert Downey Jr. was not expected to be a hit, but they doubled down on the fact that there was going to be Mjolnir in there. There was going to be Clint Barton in there, and then they followed through. So this show it's not a return to form, because it's just what any responsible holder of an intellectual property should be doing.
Yeah. I think the crazy thing in this, too, is just how many cameos there were at the upfronts for TV. And we'll talk more about the upfronts coming up here. But they labeled 3 levels of what's coming for Marvel, between having the idea of the MCU, which we know, Marvel Television, which we know, and then Marvel Animation, which we know had this project, the Spider-Man the College Years, I believe it's called, and then What If, and this Black Panther special coming. But with all the cameos in here, Dev, including a super big one, so spoilers. I mean, you can't really talk about this finale without talking about spoilers, so what are you doing here? Go get Disney Plus, go watch your Disney Plus, and go watch X-Men 97. But we do see that Peter Parker found his MJ.
Right.
And we saw a little cameo from Flash Thompson in the background as well.
I just wanted to confirm that was actually going to be him, because it was kind of a blink and you miss it moment, and I haven't seen that show in 25 years.
Yeah.
Great. Really happy.
It was him. It was him.
I definitely knew it was Peter and MJ. So X-Men 98. So X-Men 98, sorry. Spider-Man 98 resolves itself during X-Men 97, or before that, potentially?
Or before that. We don't know. Maybe we'll get Spider-Man 96.
Did the Spider-Man show ever indicate a year or anything like that? Kind of like X-Men is clearly, like, we kind of knew where that was going.
I don't know if it did or did not. No.
Okay, so they could be a little creative with it, I suppose. I'm not trying to say it has to stick to a certain year or anything like that. I just wanted to know where it fits in the universe, if you will.
Yeah. But, we're here now, and it's quite good to be here. So a few of the cameos at the top of my dome that I can remember. I think the big one, the kind of overwhelming one with the story sense, was a lot of teases of Scarlet and Quicksilver. First, we had the boat scene where you could only see Rogue, but highlighted in the left corner was Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver, and in the right corner was Polaris, which is Magneto's other child.
Right.
So you had that. And then we kind of got like the Days of Future Past level graphic there. And I'll go through everyone in a second. But there you had Scarlet and Quicksilver saying they're off-world. And Bo DeMayo has said that some of the Avengers are off-world. So that's potentially where maybe a Hulk and a Thor that we've seen Hulk, but we haven't seen Hulk. Maybe Fantastic Four are all off-world. Again, we did see Fantastic Four in this one again. His morph was Mr. Fantastic. At one scene, we saw T'Chaka, not T'Challa.
Oh yeah, we did. Yep.
So we know that he is king right now of Wakanda. We saw Cloak and Dagger in this.
Is that who the people in New York were?
Yeah, that's Cloak and Dagger.
Okay, I don't know anything about them, so you got to go from 0 to 100 with me on them.
Yeah, I'm not. More or less, they're just kind of a mix of like dark and light energy.
Okay.
More or less, just to kind of give you the cliff notes on that. There's a lot more stuff I have to go more in depth with, and I'm just not going to do them more. Like Dagger can get like light energy, and she can throw daggers, and then Cloak more or less can like teleport.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah. There's more input stuff of other mutants and characters that I have to give you stuff for. We saw Alpha Force and Janisha with Psylocke.
Okay, I definitely recognize Psylocke. I didn't recognize anybody else, so that's Alpha Force. Okay, what's Alpha Force's? Huh?
Great Canadian hero of all time, Puck.
Oh, I didn't know that. Okay.
We saw Crimson Dynamo and Omega Red.
That's who Omega Red was with? Okay.
Yeah, and then the other one I'm off the top of my head, I can't remember right now, but there's a lot of cameos. Forgive me. So Silver Samurai again.
Yes. Second time.
We saw Iron Man for the first time with Captain America. And again, this is the Captain America I remember of just being an asshole. Fuck Captain America. Just being the boy, just being the Boy Scout.
Well,
Chris Evans did such a good job of not being the Boy Scout at this level. He did such a good job of just not being like the Boy Scout. Like from the Rogue episode and now to this episode, it's literally like fuck Captain America.
Well, he was he not against the launching of the missiles, and so like it showed he was disappointed when they had gone through.
No, he said do it. He said more or less do it.
Oh, I thought he was against it. Okay.
No, he was upset he had to make that decision, but he figured that was the best decision for everybody involved. But you could tell he was like, I don't really want to do this.
I don't know a whole lot about Captain America in the comics. You talk about how he's a Boy Scout, and his like sense of morality. If he's like unwilling to compromise ever, that could be a really interesting wrinkle that you can play off of in comic books, which I'm sure people have done if that's the case. So. Iron Man in a non-speaking role, though, and with the helmet on, I was really hoping for like Spider-Man level Tony Stark.
Yeah.
Also, Doctor Strange doing surgery with
Doctor Strange. Thank you, doing the surgery.
Yeah,
that was rad. I'm just trying to think if there's anyone else I missed. There's so many cameos. And then so the board. Let's go over the board at the end here. Okay.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. So. I'm going to go left to right, left to right, left to right. Okay.
Yeah, there's 3 rows, right? You're talking about like Forge's like office, right?
Yeah. So we have Cyclops, Jean Grey, Storm, Beast, Magneto, Nightcrawler, Jubilee, and Sunspot on the top, all missing or presumed dead. We obviously know where they are. The second row, we have Xavier, missing, presumed dead. Then we have Scarlet Witch off-world, which is presumed she's with the Avengers. Apparently, she's in like the Kree Skrull debate. There's a whole comic separately on that, so that's potentially where her and Quicksilver could be.
And is this comic like kind of linked into some of the events in this? Like, is it?
Yeah, there's a whole comic about the Kree and Skrull war and how Scarlet and Quicksilver are there.
Okay.
Colossus, nothing on him. Morph, missing off-world. Rogue, missing off-world. Then you have Dust, who is a really powerful mutant who is relatively new and can more or less turn herself into dust and has the ability to, because of this, has no effect on magic or telekinesis on her at all.
So kind of like Sandman in a way, like, kind of using like physical energy to control her body and stuff like that. Probably really strong, probably. You can't really physically attack them.
Yeah. Archangel, missing, presumed dead. We saw him at Chinoso. So I guess we still don't know what happened to Archangel, potentially still. And then we have Magic, who is a really interesting mutant. That's the sister of Colossus. I don't know if you knew that.
Did not. One thing I'll say about Colossus really quickly, because there's no like banner over his face. I'm assuming they know exactly where he is.
That's the thing. With the ones that there's no banner, they know where they are.
Yeah, so okay. I figured
Colossus, Dust, and Magic, they know where they are. Magic is very interesting. She can go in between limbo and out of limbo. She's a pretty powerful mutant. Again, the sister of Colossus, and has the ability to create these portals in between limbo and can summon demons and all this kind of stuff. She's a really rad character that we had a small instance of in this this show, where if you remember when Morph was fighting the Goblin Queen, he turned into her for a bit, and then she was kind of her more reserved self. But when the Goblin Queen put Morph against everybody, she grew her horns and became a little bit more satanic.
Right.
Again, because she's in between limbo. So that's her.
Okay.
Wolverine, missing off world. Iceman, don't know where he is. Havoc, who is the brother of Scott Summers, missing off world. Then we have Cable, who is AWOL, so we don't know where Cable is at this point. Then we also have, I had another picture of all these ones down here. It was clearer, but Exodus, and we saw Exodus in Genosha. He's a former French soldier from the 1200s, and at one point kind of gets put to sleep, kind of like Apocalypse does, and then wakes up. I did a little bit of research on him, just very minimal, but it sounds like he can be like an OP Omega level mutant, more or less.
Okay,
cool. So again, we saw him in Genosha. Quicksilver in the final two with Shadowcat, aka Kitty Pryde, and we know how powerful Kitty Pryde can be. And then Emma Frost, who we did see got retrieved in Genosha.
Jeez. Okay, so we have we're kind of touching on like a little bit of everybody in the X-Men universe. Like there's some obscure people, some less obscure people. They're really digging deep into like who they're gonna bring into the next season, hey?
Yeah.
Or do you think a lot of these are just gonna be like blink and you miss cameos and we're not gonna expand on some of these, like, you know, Dust and Magic?
I would say blink and miss, but at this point now I'm just assuming anything that they do, there's a point to it. It does seem the way the Bodemeo and his crew does stuff, that anything that happens, we see it's for a reason.
So we're going to start getting kind of like alternate versions of different X-Men groups here, and like start on the search for the classic originals, if you will.
I think what we're going to have is I think there'll be a little bit of that, but we'll get into the grandeur story in a bit here. But I think what we're going to have is we'll have the X-Men that are in the past with Apocalypse and potentially Kane, because we got a Kane tease at the end of this as well. One of his tombs. So you have them in the past with Apocalypse. You have the future ones in the future with Nathan Summers and Rachel Summers, who are dealing with, say it with me, Apocalypse.
Yeah. Could you imagine? Like, there's some that are really they're really teasing at the end of this episode.
And then we go to the future and we see the Gambit card with who? Apocalypse. So we're going to 3 levels of Apocalypse, more or less, here, and how each past, present, and future will deal with Apocalypse. Obviously, the heavy tease that we've seen in the comics of Gambit becoming Death, we talked about that last week. So that was pretty much heavily handed, literally in the hand of Apocalypse, of Gambit becoming Death.
One of like the 4 horsemen, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So, yeah, we have the kind of the 3 levels there. And my guess is that they're kind of round out. The one thing I really love with Bodemeo's new idea of X-Men 2 is trying to introduce newer X-Men. So, you know, presumably this X-Men could be, you know, Colossus, Dust, Iceman, Havoc, Exodus, Shadowcat, and Emma Frost, who we've seen take in the comics in more recent years, take more of a lead as a leader of the X-Men.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously we know how important Kitty Pryde is. So gonna break in Kitty Pryde a little bit more. Magic's became a big character as well. So kind of having that as and I would assume Forge and Bishop will be a big part of that team as well.
So just to clarify, the Apocalypse character who is holding Gambit's card, is that the same Apocalypse, or is this like to me, because like they have hair and they have like a slightly different character appearance? Is this not like an offspring of Apocalypse? Is this not like Apocalypse son or anything like that? This is actually just
no,
him?
That's Apocalypse. That's Apocalypse.
Okay, just wanted to make sure, because to see, so we're going to be are they going into now, is this Days of Future Past, or like what is this Age of Apocalypse? Is like what kind of book are they building
about, it's like the Existence of the Messiah or something was the one comic I had heard, but I'm a little confused by that because that's Hope Summers and that House M has to happen first. So I think maybe people are getting a little bit carried away with that. I think because of the teases of Scarlet, that will lead to season 3. And you definitely we've been definitely seeing groundworks towards different comics that are, you know, more mainstream that people know. Like the Captain America decision was obviously laying future groundwork for X-Men vs. Avengers. 100%.
Yeah, when they get
When
back
that
into the same timeline.
when that gets out to them that Cap was okay and gave the okay to put down Asteroid M, that will completely change everything for where they look at the Avengers, because the Avengers, Tony and Cap, will be looked at the same side of being the leaders of the Avengers, being like, yeah, we got to shoot this thing down. We have to go to the Magneto protocols.
Right. Okay. That one seems to be pretty obvious. What are some of the other ones that you're kind of seeing out there?
Like the heavy-handedness of showing Scarlet on the boat and then letting us know where she is off-world and how important Scarlet is to House of M.
Okay.
And everything that leads to. People tend to think that the future side that has Jean and has Scott and has Nathan and has Rachel, people believe that's, where Hope is. And like Hope is obviously such a big part of the comics because, when Scarlet says no more mutants, she's kind of the mutant messiah because she's like one of the firstborn mutants, and it's a kind of a big deal because people thought there'd be no more mutants. She was kind of the dawn of the new era of everything. But I think that is such a big, I would say for people like you and I that are very casual in comics, and I'm getting a little less casual with some of the information I'm trying to bring here for everybody, but House of M is such a known quantity of that. Everyone talked about it specifically even during, WandaVision, right?
Yes.
So I think they know how big of a deal House of M is. In the last handful of years, it's probably one of the biggest comics. I think it came out in 2015, 2008, 2005, excuse me. And people know how iconic that comic is. So
right.
I would imagine they want to build up to that.
Okay, that's a tentpole moment in the universe that they can then build off of.
Yeah. Well, obviously, she takes away everyone's mutants' powers.
So one question I have about the show, how much do you know about the Phoenix Force? Because it seems like it kind of comes and goes when the plot
It's
demands
always
it.
kind of within her. She's never really worth it. And the Phoenix Force is incredibly complicated. I did tease last week on here that I did perceive that this was going to retrieve the Phoenix Force in her. If you go back and listen to the show last week.
Yeah.
I did have an instinct that was going to be a case. And
yeah, so can she just like pull it out at will? Does it only come out once in a while? Like
it's
only when
like she said, it's still in the recesses of her mind. She has to be pushed for the Phoenix Force to come out.
Does it ever get to a point where she so is the Dark Phoenix saga when she's able to tap into it all the time, or is it the first time she taps into it? Does she ever get to a point where she is like just the Phoenix Force?
I can't answer that. I don't know enough about that. I just know it's kind of always it's so the Phoenix Force is very complicated. It's a very complicated thing.
Okay. I just wanted to know if that was
YouTube that one. I'm not gonna give the full explanation of that. YouTube that one. It's very complicated.
Because so far it's been really convenient that the Phoenix Force comes out.
It's plays a big factor into X-Men versus Avengers, where more or less I think it's Cyclops, Hope, Colossus, I think Emma Frost and someone else all get the Phoenix Force within them to attack the Avengers.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's a very complicated thing, the Phoenix Force.
Good to know.
So, yeah. But I kind of figured, like I said last week, I kind of figured with her being pushed that we would see something like that.
Going back to the cameos, like some of them were like really self-explanatory in terms of the setting and the time and setting.
Yeah.
One of the questions that I had was about Omega Red, who I know by name and by sight. I don't really know anything about the character, but it seemed like they were like in some kind of laboratory and they were escaping. Do you know anything about that?
Weapon X.
Okay, and so
what's the Weapon X facility?
What's Omega Red's like backstory, really quickly?
More or less, kind of the same as Wolverine, right? He was just kind of tested on at the beginning of things.
Right.
Okay. He has a great set of power and everything to him. He was a serial killer in Soviet Russia and then was captured by the KGB and then kind of went through the super soldier programs, kind of similar to Cap, right?
Okay.
And then kind of eventually was building through Weapon X, kind of like we saw Crimson Dynamo and the other.
Yeah, because those things that come out of his wrists are those like adamantium kind of
those
tentacles?
are adamantium, yeah.
Okay. Gotcha.
Yeah.
And is he like perpetually a bad guy, or is he sometimes good? Or
Yeah, he's bad.
okay, just making sure.
Just for an example, like he's been with the Hand, the Red Mafia. He's been with he was with Weapon X Force when they were all kind of against their will, so kind of a weird, like kind of Suicide Squad in a way.
Okay.
But no matter what group he's been with, he has been against them, particularly.
Okay.
Yeah. You can't really look at him and be like, yeah, that guy looks like he'd be a good guy.
Well, no, I know that for sure, but especially like some of these characters, when you've been on for 20 or 30 years, one or two writers has kind of flipped. Almost every character is flipped once in a while, right?
Omega Red has never flipped.
Okay, just making sure.
The only really big ones that have really flipped have been Emma Frost and Magneto.
Because Emma Frost is basically considered like a hero now, right?
Yeah. Her and
Even
Scott
though
did it on Jean Grey's grave.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. One of the more fucked up comic moments.
Well, we've been through a lot of things as of comic fans, so
yeah. So yeah, there's kind of like a little bit of an early kind of instance. There's a lot of references in this, and I think it was good to see. That's why I think when we get to D23 in August, I'd be hard pressed to be like, yeah, this is totally going to be the way that it is.
Well, what I appreciate about the show is at least they're doing some of the groundwork now in moments that really held our attention. So that if for example, like the Silver Samurai character gets an episode next year or is involved in some kind of plot to go somewhere, it's not out of left field, and we know what we're looking for.
The thing I have is Bodemeo it wrote season 2 already, and he said he had a 5-season plan, but he's only part of these 2 seasons. And maybe, with all the success, maybe Marvel, again, we do not know what Bodemeo was fired for. I want to say that every single week we do not know. So I don't want to be like, hey, Bodemeo, great guy. And then he turns out to just do some really despicable shit. But what I will say is, everything that he's put in with the nature and the love towards the comics and the direction he's gone with the show has been really well done. And, like to see him keep on writing, but again, I don't know what he did, so it's kind of hard to balance that act right there.
Yeah, it's okay that we're hedging our bets there. One of the things I'd like to really briefly mention, this is really one of my only thoughts about the show, was I was really, really waiting for, like, so when they disappear, right, and then or like the asteroid disappears and a flash, right. I was half expecting to switch to like live action, just like, you remember that Treehouse of Horror Simpsons episode?
Yeah.
And it's almost like, because you had mentioned that this is how we're going to introduce X-Men into the world at large, or have these crossovers, whatever. And like, I just would have not assumed, but it would have been kind of cool to announce your live action cast if they had come from the comic show, or like the animated show.
Yeah.
And it just would have been like a really interesting pop. And then you would have had like, Channing Tatum as, so and so, and you would have had
Gambit trying to cover.
Well, he's not going to be Gambit, but maybe he'll be Death or something. I don't know, but
I think he's going to be Gambit. I think he's going to be Gambit in the upcoming Deadpool movie. I think he'll have a cameo as Gambit, just to kind of get it off his bucket list.
Sure. I was like, man, are they going to do Treehouse of Horror on us with this show? And then that's how they're going to like announce the new phase of movies, like, X-Men versus Avengers. The live action was going to be because these were the characters from the cartoon. And then you have to watch the cartoon.
Well, as you've seen, there's just so many things you have to still get to. So many comics that we haven't been in touch with in all this time. And like I said, there's still so much stuff. You have to get to House of M to get to X-Men versus Avengers because of Hope and everything that Hope means. So that's such a big part of all this is what Hope Summers means. So yeah.
So there's a few hurdles we got to cross before we get to some of the larger. Okay.
Yeah. I think, we kind of already did Age of Apocalypse more or less in X-Men, but there's obviously a grandiose apocalypse storyline that's going to be taking place in season 2. And then I could see, you know, season 3 ending on the idea of House of M, maybe leading to House of M. Maybe that's how you nullify Apocalypse, and then you could lead into the whole Hope Summers story for season 3.
Okay.
And then, you know, potentially maybe season 4 is X-Men Avengers. I would assume maybe that's how you want to go out in season 5, but that would maybe be the arc that I would go to. I don't know when this is coming back because they just started doing recordings now. It'll be back next year. Like the animation, everything sounds like it's done. They're doing voice recordings of everything right now. The scripts are written and that's all done. But as a whole for it overall, I mean, I don't think anything is like blowing anything out of the water like this animation wise, at least on a Disney property since Clone Wars.
Well, you're capturing nostalgia. I mean, so many of our biggest hits are capitalizing on things that we grew up with as children.
I do think it's past the nostalgia thing. It's just good storytelling now.
The
is. Nostalgia side is huge, but the storytelling is up there with some of the best dramas that are on television this year.
Short answer, yes, I would say so. That it's mature, it's well thought out. It is morally gray in a lot of senses. A lot of these characters are making decisions, or they have opinions that are morally gray, even if they're making the good or bad decision. Like someone like Scott, for example, is always a good guy. But the way that he talks is definitely, he's leaning towards like a more aggressive viewpoint that leans towards more Magneto, even if he does, you know, rely on Professor X for a lot. And so this is what kind of the best part about the X-Men are, is, you know, are their standards as to how do you treat not non-humans, but you know what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
People different than the majority. And obviously we talk a lot about the parallels with the civil rights movement and even what's going on in our contemporary society right now. That's why it's hitting. It's also popping because we're having these conversations with the LGBT community and immigration and whatever.
Yeah, those have always been a present thing into X-Men. On the Bastion side, I think the good thing about X-Men sometimes is the best villains can always find themselves back. And I don't think the problem with the MCU is they've neutered so many good villains at times, right? They have this big grandiose movie and then they're killed off, right? You know, Killmonger, Hela come to mind. There's 2 really good ones. Thanos, although I do see Thanos is coming back.
Well, even just ones that should have staying power. Someone like Armin Zola, you know, being like a Soviet era computer.
Oh, I don't know if Armin Zola is dead. I'll say that much.
No, of course so.
But I know what you're saying.
You know, even these characters, like they don't have to, like, we don't always have to have like MODOK level comedy villains. But I think you're right. Like we've treated a lot of the villains as being dirty, disposable. Like the Mandarin, for example, really weird. I don't know where to think about that. But it's, I mean, one of the rumors is that Sam Rockwell is going to be Justin Hammer again.
Yep.
Which I have feelings about Iron Man 3, but if they're going to kind of retcon a bunch of stuff and like it's like actually everyone was playing themselves as a joke in this movie, and now
Sam Rockwell's Iron Man 2.
Serious. Thank you, Iron Man 2.
Just to give you the full Nerdwell, actually.
Yeah, actually. Whiplash can stay where he is, but Justin Hammer would be
as long as he's got his bird. Where's my bird? I need my bird.
Yeah, the most quotable thing of that movie, probably.
The bird. Anything else? I mean, Bastion, I thought, though, was a really good character. I thought Theo James did a terrific job with voice casting.
His voice acting was strong.
There's a lot of, you can kind of look at when he was carrying his mother. There's like some similarities to Psycho right there as well, with his mom and the parallels between Psycho and his mom and the character tactics there, I would say, a little bit.
Oh, yeah. You mean kind of in terms of like what his version of reality is.
Yeah.
But also we don't know what the real, and so far in this show, maybe in the comics it's been shown, but is this an example where Xavier didn't do necessarily the right thing?
No, if he did. I mean, he
definitely, and everyone believes that, you know, Xavier went to his mother to like give him a choice and et cetera, which kind of broke his brain a little bit. But his version of reality is the fact that he was like cast aside and he was abandoned by them.
Yep.
So what's the right answer? I'm not really sure. I mean, we've kind of talked about with Xavier the last two episodes, like his like quest to be like morally good leads him down a path of interesting choices, like even like going it so far as to breaking Magneto's psyche, uh,
Yep.
and then rebuilding him. Is that even, especially with telepathy? Like you think there'd be a lot of that's probably a really great side story that X-Men has tried to tell over various parts of mediums. Like you basically have to rely on the trust that he's not reading people's minds until he has to break it, and then if he breaks it for one person, why would he not break it for other people?
Yeah. What else are we missing here? I think we set ourselves up pretty good for everything that's going to come forward here. I mean, also Sinister, just Jean fucks Sinister up, man. And then I kind of love kind of like a nice moment for Morph, right? When all the souls have been kind of like Shang Tsung style, kind of been sucked out of Mr. Sinister. And Morph, he's like, "What do I look like?" And Morph kind of shows him, and that's kind of it's got to be a satisfying thing with Morph for all the torture the Sinister did to him.
I feel like Morph kind of got done a little, just a touch dirty in this show. Like I know that's nice to bring him back because in terms, to quote Rogue, like kind of they did him dirty. Like he lasted 30 seconds in the original show.
Yeah.
I'd like him to have a little bit more of a presence. Not. I don't want him to change into people all the time. I would just like to to hear what makes this character unique. What's their viewpoints? What are they trying to
Well,
grapple with
they
for their
they
problems?
got to kind of say "I love you" to Logan, and I think for them that was really important.
Well, you're kind of wondering, like, is that how Morph feels about Logan, or is
Yeah.
is that what Morph thinks Logan needs to hear?
Yeah, that was kind of the big thing. It's like for them, that was a big moment to get off their shoulders. But was it more using the proxy of Jean Grey so Logan could hear that? Or was it the proxy of Morph wanting to say it, but not fully being able to say it so he knew he could say it in Jean's voice?
Yeah, that'll have some echoes in the dust in a future season, I'm sure.
Morph did the great job of every episode giving us a cameo and giving us the Leo like point at the screen meme.
I also respect the fact that they used like appropriate mutants' powers for the job too.
Yeah.
They didn't just they weren't kind of blink and you miss cameos. Like they all like being the Hulk had a purpose to that. Um, and then being like wasn't the flying dinosaur people like had a purpose to that. So I'm okay with it.
Overall, I mean, there's so much more we could go into and talk in depth with. I just think overall, like when this show was announced, you and I were like, "Oh yeah, that'll be really cool." Like I did not expect to feel the way I did about X-Men 97 now. Like as like I mean, I don't know for sure if it's coming back in 2025. Animation takes a long time to do, as any fan of, any anime or any animation will tell you, right? So, Samurai Jack for you. I remember in the early stages was like, yeah, Samurai Jack this time. No, okay, it's gonna be pushed back to here, right? So it's never it's a harder process to get done. I've learned it with Rick and Morty at times of just, you just got to be patient with these things. I think the biggest thing we've seen it with on this show is Invincible. And I've seen a lot of comparables today about, some in-house fighting on socials about what's the best animated superhero show right now
Mhm.
on streamers. And I'm like, well, to me, it's not really close. Invincible is great, but what this was able to do was far better to me. I cared about it, and you brought this up, I think, in the Invincible review. It's like, I only really care when Alan's on screen, Invincible, and Omni Man. And for the
Yeah.
most part, I think that's true. I like Rex a little bit, but I almost wonder if I like Rex or if I like Jason Mantzoukas. Then that's why I like Rex.
Yeah, you like his performance rather than the character.
Yeah, but with this, I don't think there's anyone I don't care about. I care about everybody on the team. There's times when in the Genosha episode, when Rogue would be down, I'd be upset. When Storm lost her powers at first, I was upset. Obviously, when Gambit lost, I was devastated. Wolverine got down, I was hurt. Seeing Cyclops show what Cyclops can do.
Mm-hmm.
This did a really good job of making you care week to week of what the storylines are and sending you off in the right way. And I think the finale did a good job of wrapping up where we're everything that was told, and then a good job of sending us in the next direction and letting us ask questions where we're going, which I think is what every good show should do.
Well, one of the strengths of this medium, with a little bit of hard work, is I think that they were relatively respectful to people's power levels and powers, which is also something that's really hard to do in live action. Just because how do you not have a laser beam come out of your eyes and not blow up, like disintegrate everything in its path? Well, that's kind of one of the problems with Cyclops. But at the same time, I think they did a wonderful job of not only showing him varying his intensity of the beams, but also using those intensities to his advantage, right? Sometimes he did go all out. Sometimes he did use it to just, you do a move from Capcom versus SNK or whatever. And even just seeing Rogue like go all out power wise against Bastion, like she, clearly dominated him on a physical level, and it had to take him like, evolving his mechanical self to be a threat to her. And then you couple that with her, I wouldn't say a growth as a character, but the things that she had to endure this season, and it made for a really rewarding, just even though it only lasted 25 or 30 seconds, that just seemed really rewarding if you're a fan of the Rogue character.
Yeah, I really like that part. And kind of getting a little bit of revenge for Genosha and everything that happened there with Gambit.
Well, she said it. His name was Gambit. Remember it. And it's like, oh my goodness, like that's such a great callback. Like it was so.
I also like Jubilee in that fight. Jubilee when he's like, "What is this? The 4th of July?" She's like, "Bro, I've heard this shit. Fuck you." And then she like melted off his face. I'm like, that was a really good moment for Jubilee, because how many times did Jubilee the Jubilee insults have been the same thing, right? Of like, oh, you're gonna kill me 4th of July fireworks, and then melting off of some of Bastion's face and getting a good licking on that fight. I'm like, Jubilee really needed that for her character.
Yes. Well, Jubilee exists as a storytelling aspect for the other, she's kind of the most relatable human character or mutant character of the show for us normal people to kind of watch.
Well, like when we came in as kids, right, too, it's like, oh, this is the kid kind of like us. She's going to the mall and she's going through changes. That's what she was meant for, in your point, for us in the early 90s when we started watching it.
Now, was Jubilee created for the show?
No. I don't believe so.
She had already existed. Okay, because
I'll have to double check.
I don't think that we've ever seen, I don't think I've ever seen her as anyone other than kind of like a meme character before.
Her and Dazzler.
I would like to see, because I'm assuming at some point, like as she grows and matures, she's going to tap into other parts of her powers and uses for her powers that are going to.
Her first appearance was Uncanny X-Men, so she was not, like I said, that she was not originally meant for she was not like made for the show, kind of like a Harley Quinn was for Batman, for example.
Yeah. I don't think I've seen Jubilee exist as a character where I go, oh, I think she's really tapped into what she has to offer.
Yeah.
It seems like in this show, as she's maturing as an individual, as a person, as a teenager, I think she's kind of like Sunspot are kind of finding their powers, but also finding their voices. And it's nice to see Jubilee kind of get a little like, I want to see some power once in a while.
Yeah. Yeah, I think they did a good job of that. And I was really happy just to see Jubilee get hers in, kind of see Sunspot go full force of what he can be. We talked a little bit about what his powers and everything, what he can be. So, and that's again, like I think the one thing I've liked about what Bio has been able to do, and the whole writing staff with this X-Men, is we're getting introduced to some of the newer X-Men that we aren't as familiar to throughout the years. So now we've had time to get to know Sunspot, for example, and we're going to get more on Magic, who, again, I think this is more of a case of the casual audience isn't as familiar with, Dust and Exodus and Magic, right? They're not as familiar with, or Blink. These are characters, or Polaris. These are characters that aren't as familiar to, you consider yourself a casual X-Men fan over the past few
Totally.
years, right? And I know people are gonna be like, well, these characters were in X-Men and the Wolverine or X-Men Evolutions. Some people
Doesn't
didn't
count.
watch those shows. Some people didn't
Doesn't
watch those shows. Like this is, when you there's been characters that were Batman, Brave and the Bold, which is a great show, but at the end of the day, people always go back to the archetype of there's certain animation shows, and maybe I'm getting a little bit off my get off my lawn mode here, but where that character's base of what they were in is the main base that we base a lot of characters off of. So I mean, waiting for a Mr. Freeze story will always be waiting for a Mr. Freeze story based off what happened to Batman the animated series, right? When I mentioned here when I saw Endgame, I couldn't help but feel, wow, if we only did what the finale, for example, was in Justice League United, right? So you always kind of have those bases of that Justice League cartoon, Batman the animated series, and then these Fox shows, specifically Spider-Man and X-Men. And I think X-Men was in a place where that fifth season came, the animation was lower quality than we expected. The writing was still good, but it kind of got lost where everything was at that point. And then over the last 20 years, people remembered a lot of positive things from it, like the Phoenix Force, Age of Apocalypse, and a lot of other stuff. But primarily, I would say outside of the Phoenix Force, the theme song stuck strong with it. And now 10 episodes after that, the character work and the writing is what stands tall for it. And the theme song is just the cherry on the top.
Well, the easiest example I'd have to compare what you're saying, franchise-wise, is Transformers.
Yeah.
And essentially, we've seen 4 or 5 different Transformers shows, which have all had different tellings and different kind of interpretations. And even though the G1 cartoon firmly fits into just being one side, one story, almost every single creator has to reference very well established G1 facts as being part of the lore now. And so Transformers has slowly but surely kind of developed its own continuity, and not everything gets taken from G1, but almost everything references G1, and then the other appearances are kind of like you have to add new information that the G1 show didn't cover, and that's allowed to kind of flesh out characters. But you always have to kind of go back to if a character showed up in G1, a lot of the basis is done off of that, and then you have to work within that framework. And I think it sounds like this for X-Men going forward, like X-Men or Spider-Man 98, these are the bases now. This is row zero. And if you want to do anything with a character, you have to make sure it doesn't conflict with what I guess the fandom and what Marvel's decided, which is this is the 0 point going forward. All the stories will be told through this medium, and if it's not through like this show, then you get to do something different to it.
I will be interested in D23 what the plans will be for animation now. Like I said, we have What If Season 3 coming out next year. I believe that Black Panther show will be next year and Spider-Man will be next year. And we don't know if X-Men will be next year or not. Like I said, animation takes a long time to do. I'd assume it was. The rumor was next winter. So we got a long wait for X-Men Season 2 next winter. So we'll see where everything goes. But I would say right now, Marvel animation is in a good view and could be a huge boost to something that maybe wasn't a main gear directed originally for Disney, but now can be and they have Marvel Zombies coming as well. So all of a sudden, I think the animation direction becomes a main pillar now that maybe in a way Disney didn't plan.
Well, I think they saw the success that DC has had with their animated division.
Mm-hmm.
And every time they announced a new project, there was no debate as to whether this was like an Elseworlds tale or this fit into kind of like main continuity. And kind of what we talked about with Transformers, like this show, this movie, this 2-hour movie, this special, this whatever, this clearly fits into the Justice League timeline. This clearly fits into the year 1 timeline or whatever, right? And I think that fans just really want to know. Fans want to know what they're getting into in terms of what things to bring in with it, what expectations to bring, character developments, and even just appearances. Um, DC has a lot of problems, but we've talked a lot about the influentialness of their comics, and then their comic adaptations of those stories have been relatively really well regarded. And now, I mean, this isn't reinventing the wheel. Marvel's doing exactly what DC's been doing for the last 20 years, but now it's like, oh yeah, we are like, with the caveat of having some of the most famous characters on Earth right now.
Yeah, I agree. I 100% agree. And so, I mean, it's very somber that I say goodbye with all this because I've really enjoyed it. And I mean, the Bad Batch, we talked about it last week. I know, or 2 weeks ago, there's a lot of people that were happy with the Bad Batch. I just felt the one thing this did, unlike some of those Star Wars shows at times, I think the final season of Clone Wars did a better job of it than other than the 2 episodes with the sisters. But just the lulls in some of those Star Wars shows where the Jubilee episode was like half an episode that was a lull, but then we had Life Death with Storm and Forge. That was a really good half of that episode. And I'm okay having like some fun in there. And if you look at it in hindsight, that Jubilee story did tell a story of her and Sunspot that meant to the rest of the way that we go, and it was somewhat memorable. So I hope that, with the Star Wars shows going forward, we get a little bit more what we had from X-Men here. And we just move forward. There's no like, yeah, this episode happens, Omega fell down a hole. Oh, well.
Well, it's just vision. It's vision, and it's respecting our time.
Yeah.
I think one of the hardest parts for Star Wars animation, which we like, they have to walk this really weird line as to being approachable from a younger viewer standpoint, yet also respecting, and clearly from Filoni's standpoint, respecting legends and having mature subtext, which is why the Bad Batch and Tales of the Empire feel so different, even though they're basically the same. Bad Batch could have totally been Tales of the Empire for 2 or 3 seasons and just have this like Call of Duty like feel, almost, where it's just like you're constantly grinding small victories out. And that's where like the Clone Wars was very firmly a children's show which touched on some mature topics. I was hoping Bad Batch was not going to be that way, although I guess I shouldn't have been surprised that they kept up that formula of having like some slapstick humor and some characters that kids would relate to.
Mhm.
And it just so happens that like they did Tales of the Jedi and Tales of the Empire are exactly what we're looking for, and so we can't be disappointed that we're not getting more of it, because like we're not the target demographic.
Yeah.
Even though we would like to be, every demographic wants to be catered to, and I think that they cater to us once a year when they give us Tales of Blank or Visions.
So to wrap it up, what do you give X-Men?
Oh, hard 9. Like I don't. Is it worthy of it? I mean, it might be worth a rewatch for me to have. I'm also not
It's
a
a
big
12.
X-Men fan. Yeah, like I think your mileage will vary in terms of how much you know about what to look forward to. Like you're like the way that you talk about these episodes and these interactions are setting up further team ups or further characters coming to light that you've even heard about. You don't have to know everything about them, but I
Mhm.
don't have that. And so I have to look at it from a very like singular point of view, and you get to look at it from kind of a larger point of view.
Yeah.
So I'm happy with it, with giving it a 9. I have like real no critiques for it. Um, I think the pacing and the maturity is like my 2 favorite things about it, to be
Yeah,
quite
I
honest.
think the best part is, I think Senator said this in one of our groups, of it brought you in with the nostalgia, and then it didn't cater down to you. I think that's because that's what I thought it was. Like, watching some of the older episodes back, it's great, but it's definitely, meant for a certain age demographic. And in this one, it's like, hey, we know you grew up with these comics and you grew up with this show. So we're not going to go down to an age demographic. We're going to hit on some more mature themes.
Yeah.
And I would like, I wouldn't say my nephew is 5'6". Probably, I don't know. I mean, I don't think it's the end of the world if he watches this, but I probably wouldn't say it would be the right time for him to watch it till maybe 8 or 10.
Well, the
If that
question
makes
is, would like you're right in terms of like the we'll call it like gore or the
Yeah.
violence. Like, no, they do a really good job of not making it anything that a child cannot see. If you're right, 5, 6, 7, as we were kind of that age when we watched this show. But would he get any of the themes that they talked about in this season? That's a much harder point. And I would say no.
Yeah, like the Cap stuff, I think was a pretty big stuff, and there's been other stuff as well. So goodbye, X-Men. I mean, we'll have a little bit of a lull after this week before we get even Disney had Doctor Who's on there, which I watched a little bit of, and I don't have a review on it fully because I watched something else we'll talk about in a bit. But a little bit of a lull here for about 2 weeks, and then June comes and it's just like so much.
Basically.
Yeah, we will have weekly we'll have 2 things to review, and then the Bear just comes
Binge
out all
drop.
at once.
Which I think we should not review as a whole. We should review, we should just agree that we're going to do 2 episodes a week.
I like
review.
it. Can we just watch 2 episodes a week?
Yeah.
Okay, I like it.
If you want to binge the whole thing, you're absolutely more than welcome to. But I think we should only talk about 2 episodes or 1 episode at a time.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up because that was the thing I wanted to talk about quickly before we get to our other subjects here. The Emmy side of things. If the Bear goes, we talked about this last week, and I just want to hit on this one more time. If the Bear goes into drama, it goes into comedy, it's fucking bullshit. I mean, excuse me for cursing there, but like it's real bullshit. Like the season that's going in will be this past season,
right?
Because obviously May 31st is the dead. This was not a comedic season of television. And for shows like Abbott and What We Do in the Shadows and others, it's not fair to them of what they're trying to do as a comedic platform to what the Bear was doing, where it is dramatic.
Yeah, just because you have Maddie Matheson shouting every other episode doesn't make it a comedy.
Yeah. And I know like someone like AO is more a comedic actor, right? Mm. And that's great that she's winning Best Comedic Actor. Well deserved. She's fantastic. But for this to be against some of those shows, and I guess for me, like the next few seasons going against something like What We Do in the Shadows, where it's going to go in this run and get it overshadowed because The Bear is such a great show, and Abbott Elementary, which is a fantastic show. I don't think it's kind of BS that it's in the wrong category. And it will probably be in comedy because with Shogun now getting renewed or coming back, whatever you want to use for that. Now, we talked about this last week, how we thought it'll still put itself into short form show, miniseries, whatever. Well, now it seems like Shogun is going to be going into drama. So there's not a chance in hell that FX is putting their 2 best shows against each other.
No, and it almost should be like you should submit pieces of work, but not be able to submit what awards it's up for.
So my understanding, you nominate. You don't just nominate the series; you nominate an episode, right? So, the Genosha episode is the episode that X-Men's nominated for Best Animated Series. I would assume, I don't know the Bear one. I'd assume it's either Spoons or the Christmas episode that they will submit.
Yeah, those 2 are clearly the standout episodes of that.
And Shogun, I don't even know. Probably the penultimate.
Episode 9, probably, with Mariko.
Yeah.
Or you do something early like the 8-fold fence or something like that.
We talked about how there was no real drama competition. So Ripley, people seem to be very high in that. I haven't got a chance to see Ripley yet. But I will. I mean, there's just so much random stuff on right now that I'll try, but it's got our boy Andrew Scott in that. So I'm always happy to see anything with Andrew Scott. So hopefully they'll get along, but I know that's getting pretty high praise right now is Ripley.
I like how all the material I've seen for Ripley makes it look like it's a cologne ad. Like all the black and white just makes me feel like it's like some Giorgio Armani cologne.
But it's like this psychological thriller.
So, okay, this might be an elephant in the room. That show with Andrew Scott, is it Talented Mr. Ripley, the show?
No.
Is it not? I thought it was. Oh,
no, wow, it's okay. The idea is a grifter named Ripley living in New York during the 1960s is hired by a wealthy man to bring his vagabond son home from Italy.
Is that not okay? Damn. Okay, good to know. Thank you.
Yeah. Man, just looking at the freaking cologne out of my head. Dakota Fanning's also in it. My nan, she was very high on it. She recommended
Yeah,
it.
I'm pretty sure it's Talented Mr. Ripley,
Maybe I'm wrong then.
the show.
I've never
I
seen
think
Talented Mr. Ripley, so
Oh, it's good. I don't remember all the details, but it's like there's a lot of like smoldering intensity to it. It's worth a watch. I'll see if it's let me check on
that's Matt
Letterboxd really
Damon,
quickly.
right?
Yeah, Matt Damon and Jude Law and Gwyneth Paltrow, I think.
Oh, it is Mr. Ripley. Okay, my bad.
It is definitely worth watching. It is not on streaming, unfortunately. It was at one point. I think it was on Netflix.
Are you going to try? Do you think you'll watch this Andrew Scott thing before the Emmys come out?
You know what? These downtimes is always when I have to get a little creative, or like when I catch up on things that I've been like rewatching.
Yeah.
It's hard to say. We just watched the first episode of like the Under the Bridge show on Disney with Lily Gladstone that talks about like the missing
how's that?
girl. Sorry?
How was that?
You know what? It fits really firmly into like kind of, True Detective Night Country or like, Mayor of Easttown kind of thing, missing girls, but like it's set in Victoria, which is like a nice little change of pace. So you're kind of getting a little bit of it feels like it's like a good Canadian production. You know how Canadian TV for the longest time felt like it was like B or C list.
Yeah.
This feels kind of like an HBO show just in
Oh,
Vancouver,
nice.
or sorry, Victoria. It's only been one episode so far, so I can't really judge it as a whole, but it definitely held my attention for a while. But to go back to the 2 weeks of kind of nothing being on, like I'm right in the middle of Neon Genesis Evangelion again, so it's like maybe I'll get to Ripley, but I have a date with some anime movies first.
There you go. Yeah, I kind of do like these breaks, especially with June coming and just having so much of the content coming. Baby Reindeer I was going to watch, and a lot of people are like, yeah, it's good, but it's very disturbing. I'm like, I'm good then. I was told some of the graphic stuff that happened. I'm like, I don't think I need that right now.
Oh, I mean, I heard it was kind of like considered to be like a horror show, but I had never looked into it past that.
Yeah. All right. You got 2 more subjects to get, and then we're going to get out of here. Rom Coms. They're having a year, man. They, I know you're going to talk about the Sydney Sweeney and Glenn Powell one here in a second. I'll just say I saw the Anne Hathaway one, and I saw Mother of the Bride with Brooke Shields. Both are completely exactly what they are. The thing that I love about both of them is they're both very different. The Anne Hathaway one is a very new age kind of rom-com, and there's a lot more dramatic elements to it.
Okay.
I'd almost call it like a drom-com. A rom-drom. Because there's more dramatic elements to it than there is comedic elements to it, because it's more of this idea of somewhat of an older woman dating a pop star and what you'd have to go through with the paparazzi in this age of social media and how hard that would be dating someone that isn't a pop. And this is why mainly celebrities date other celebrities, right? Instead of people that aren't not that, because at least they're kind of used to being in the limelight of everything like that. And I just, love Anne Hathaway. We've grown up with Anne Hathaway. I thought it was fine. And then Mother of the Bride is very the classic 90s episode is like, oh, this premise, this is crazy. Will they end up together? Plus, we're going to go here. Like, cool. Destination rom-com concept that you know exactly where it's going to go. I can shut my mind off for 90 minutes. Brilliant. Love it.
Is Steve Martin in it? I don't recall.
No.
Okay.
Oh, no. This one, no. It's Brooke Shields and Benjamin Bratt is 60 and looks phenomenal.
Yeah, he's like looked the same my whole life, it feels like.
And it kind of reminded me, Benjamin Bratt's one of those guys I'm like, I see in a movie, I'm like, sweet, I'm in. Again, we had this discussion with Nick and Adam a while ago, but Benjamin Bratt's another one on the list. I was like, Benjamin Bratt's in it? Cool, I'm in, whatever. I just like his energy. I like his energy on screen.
He's like kind of sleazy, but funny, but like kind of sarcastic.
Yeah.
I know you're talking about. He fits a mold for sure. He's definitely he's not a that guy. He's definitely a step above of that guy. He's a name brand that guy. But he's like the fancy version of when you buy like you don't buy President's Choice chicken stock, you buy like Campbell's chicken stock.
Yeah. So it's number 1 on Netflix right now, and it's harmless. It's and Nick and I were talking about it because a lot of people have rated it like 4 out of 10 and stuff like that. I'm like, when I rate these movies, I always have to rate these movies on a curve. Like when I
Yeah.
rate like Beekeeper or this, like these are rated on a curve. Like if you're going in to watch Beekeeper or Mother of the Bride, like that movie sucks. It's like no shit. Like what are you expecting? Like it's not gonna be Citizen Kane. Like
Yeah.
you can turn your brain off and have fun with. At the end of the day, like if you have fun with it, that's already 5, and then everything else from there, you kind of go right. So did I have fun on location? Boom, that's an extra point for me. Was there some funny stuff? Boom, that's a point for me. So like, I think Nick gave it like a 6, and I gave it like a 6.5.
Yeah, I think what you said is really good, important, or really important about judging on a curve, and the idea of like a 6 out of 10 people being upset about that. Well, you can kind of judge it in terms of its contribution to movies and cinema as a whole, which is where the 6 comes out of. But also at the
Yeah.
same time, like you can also like it being a 6. You can like it being a 7. You can some not everyone, like if it was really that easy, everyone's favorite movie we would argue about the same 10 movies being the best movies of all time: Citizen
Yeah.
Kane, Godfather 1, Godfather 2, Apocalypse Now, whatever. But it's not. Some people's favorite movie is The Lorax. Some people's favorite movie is episode 1. Some people's favorite movie is,
I'm glad you mentioned episode 1. I want to circle back to that in a second, really quick after this.
whatever. So for the idea for rom-coms to come back and people to kind of walk away saying like I had fun, media as a whole should be fun. Um, it's just a matter of what you want out of it. I, in particular, don't find watching people fall in love to be that. It's not that it's not enjoyable. I just don't find it that entertaining compared
Yeah,
to
the
what.
premise isn't there for you.
But I also respect the fact, like I just watched the Sydney Sweeney one, so I'm a little late to the party.
Yeah.
And my partner and I really debated about like, she was talking a lot about like, oh, thanks for watching a chick flick for me. And then we kind of sit down and think about it. Like, it really isn't a chick flick at all because it doesn't really glamorize or glorify one gender or the other or one of the relationships.
I think
or
the
other.
idea of a chick flick is done now. I think that's so passe.
Yeah, just like how it's kind of gone away with the idea of like women empowerment and this new generation of feminism where like they're having like a women's movie per se is like also like, yeah, a chick flick does not have to be a woman's movie.
Well, because they would say too, there's women that you'd say the Beekeeper. That's a guy's movie, right? There's plenty of women that are going to be like, I want to watch Beekeeper. And the guy's like, I don't really want to watch that. Well, please watch Beekeeper with me. He's like, all right, I guess I will.
You know what? I do not live in that world where that conversation happens, and if you do, I'm really happy for you. But we had to really talk about whether or not um, the Sydney Sweeney movie is and it's just a rom com because it provides equal amount of respect, or in the case of this movie, kind of disrespect to both of those people, rather than having one person who's put together and one person being like the lovable oaf that people just can't help but love. No, they were both kind of pieces of shit. They're both kind of assholes, and they were also like they're both on the same page intellectually and and career wise and stuff like that. So I'm relatively happy with what it was trying to accomplish. I think, as my partner mentioned, like it's very clearly based on Much Ado About Nothing, and there was little Easter eggs all over the place, which was great.
Yeah.
I wish that they would have leaned into that aspect more, because you could tell when the side characters were directly quoting Shakespeare, but they never let the two main actors characters quote Shakespeare. And so I almost thought it was like from a cinema standpoint, it would pair really, really well with Romeo plus Juliet by Baz Luhrmann and Leonardo DiCaprio as a double feature. But I think my main critique of that movie is nothing to do with the plot, it has nothing to do with the jokes that they had or anything, or the location that they were at. It was that I wish that they would have leaned into that avenue a little harder, and I think it would have gotten a little bit more of like critical respect.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. I mean, like I said when I walked out of that movie, Sydney Sweeney's great. She's one of the biggest stars right now. People are excited to put her into stuff. She's gonna make a right movie that she's gonna be a part of now. To me, I walked away. I'm like, Glenn Powell, man, all the stock.
Well, I thought that it was kind of weird between the two of them. I didn't see a lot of personality chemistry between the two characters. I definitely thought that they had a lot of physical chemistry, and to the point that they leaned into that with all these rumors about cheating on their spouses with each other or whatever. And, Sydney Sweeney's engaged and she was like with Glenn Powell the whole time. I thought they did a really convincing job of of that passion and like them kind of holding back and trying to go to bed with each other. But if we were to take this exact movie and just AI replaced Glenn Powell's face and Sydney Sweeney's face with like Matthew McConaughey and Kate Hudson, would it be an even better example of this genre? And so is this movie a return to form for the genre? Absolutely. This is going to be someone's favorite movie, and I'm really excited for that. Is this like is this on the Mount Rushmore of rom-coms? No, I don't think so. And that's okay too. It's probably
But it was
a
nice
B.
that it went to the box office and it made money at the box office.
Yeah. It's
I think it made 200 million.
probably in the genre, it's probably a B tier.
Yep.
But I think it's the same way that we talk about I Love You Man in terms of like all these like Rat Pack or sort of the Brat Pack comedies or the Frat Pack comedies. Like I Love You Man is not on the same level of Superbad, and we know that and we're okay with it.
If this was the juice that makes studios be like, if we get two bigger attractive stars and put them into a film, people will come see it. And this movie made $200 million. And it can be the rom-com premise, what we thought we could just throw into streaming, then I'm all for it, because this is the premise that I do like to see, and these are the type of movies that don't typically do well at the box office anymore, and this one did.
Well, I respect the fact that they wrapped it up, and they weren't taking a gamble and leaving the door open for like a sequel.
Yep.
If a sequel were to happen, I'm sure a lot of people would be really happy about it, and they'd have to do something kind of, a little zany to make it fit. But the way that it ended, if I never see this movie ever again, and if I never see a sequel ever again, I'm still happy with the idea that this movie exists.
This is the idea of Bill Simmons' The Rewatchables. There's parts in this that you're like, oh yeah, this part, and this part, and this part. They have the keys to make this a rewatchable. I don't know how much a rewatchable is a thing in this decade and era anymore. Did you really have the channel flipping on Turner like we used to have back in the days? Like, oh, Trading Places is on, and it's at this point right here. Or Overboard is on, which was the Turner classic, which was always at Overboard on all the time. It's like, this part of Overboard's on, I'm going to watch this scene, because then you get just stuck with it.
Well, it's because it's memeable. There's people who make super cuts of all the funniest parts of these movies, or just the part that you want to watch. And so you don't have to sit through parts of the movie to kind of like, and be like, oh, like I've watched this movie 3 times and this is the first time I've noticed this detail because I was waiting to get to this funny part. Now you just get to type in like the Along Came Polly basketball scene and skip all the things you don't want to watch. And so you're not really going to learn anything extra about a movie just by having it so accessible at your fingertips. You have to sit down and actually kind of grind out the parts that you didn't think you would like that pay off in other ways. Like I had noticed, in this movie, the Sydney Sweeney one, like the dog, the dog was not even, it was like literally one part of the movie, but he was following Gata around so much because Gata kept dropping treats and stuff. And so he was like Gata's favorite person. And so it makes sense that when it came down to like the cake falling off the table was because of all the things that Gata was reinforcing with this dog's behavior with the toy and the treats and stuff like that. Like it was as simple as that, but it was a nice little detail that made it feel really deliberate as a movie.
All right, let's get to the last part of it, which is Hollywood Rundown, which is all the TV upfronts right now. So if you're new to this and just checking out Hollywood Rundown for the first time, more or less, I just tell Devan, hey, this is what happened, and he tells me what he thinks. So we have the new Office coming, and Steve Carell was on Stephen Colbert and said, like, I probably won't be on it. And of course, why would he? Because it takes place in a different place, and it's on an entirely different idea. It's a newspaper company.
I'm really okay with the fact that he's upfront about that.
I don't need to see. I mean, I'll probably watch this, and I'm not going to see any of the people from. I don't really expect to see John Krasinski or Jenna Fisher or Rainn Wilson, Craig Robinson, and so on be on this season, because this is an entirely different thing. And I think in a way too, like what the other Office did is like you weren't having Martin Freeman and others coming out of that office. You had the one thing with Ricky Gervais there, the quick 2-second appearance with him and Steve Carell, but you didn't need to have them there all the time. Make them their separate entities. Whatever this new Office is with this newspaper company, it's an entire entity. And having Michael Scott show up Makes no sense. Michael Scott
So
moved on, lived his life in Colorado. This is the new entity.
here's my question: why even call it The Office then?
I think because we're making the Office universe.
Sure, I get that, but even still, like I just find that so like as a I don't know. And
Because
I
if
know
Peacock just called this newspaper company, then maybe,
no
it
one's
draws
watching
in
it.
and it has
Yeah.
Donald Gleason, for example. So that's a name that people would want to watch. But people aren't going to watch it unless that when it has the name and then you're like, oh, who's in the new Office? Oh, Donald Gleason. Now you have more attention to it.
I know exactly why they're doing it. I just find it really shady.
Yeah. Nicolas Cage, Adam's favorite actor. We're getting a Spider-Man noir series on Amazon Prime, and it is live action cinema.
Cool. I'm happy for it. I really don't care, but I'm happy for it. That's cool.
One of the main things we've seen at the upfronts this week is the bundle. I don't know how much this is going to affect us up here in Canada, but in the States, you're getting a lot of these bundles. So there will be the Disney bundle, which is more or less Disney, Hulu, and Max. And now Netflix has came out with their own bundle, which, and Disney's changed it too. They are also including Prime. So Disney, Max, and Prime.
Mm-hmm.
And then we have the other side for the Netflix side of things, which will be Disney, Apple, and Peacock. First off, which bundle would you be more interested in buying? And what do you think about the idea of bundle, aka Cable 2.0?
As a fan of brands buying it, like using my own money, I would buy the Apple, or not the Apple one, the Disney one.
Yeah.
In terms of reach and content, though, it'd have to be the Netflix one.
Yeah. Although there's not as much stuff on Peacock, really.
Well, here's they're also like undergoing, like they might go a corporate sale. So like a lot of these things are kind of up in the air in terms, like even the idea of sports rights it seems like
we're gonna get to that in a second.
It seems like there's an open secret as to what broadcast companies got what rights. They just haven't announced anything yet.
There was a big one today. I guess we can go to that in a second.
One of the things that I'll say really quickly, which is like how art imitates life a lot of times in the creation of cable, and these kind of bundles and whatever. I almost think that at some point in time, what's going to happen, kind of like what we talked about with video game companies and these console makers, is what you're doing is you're paying for a portal and then you're buying tiles in that portal. So like at some point in time, what's going to happen is every streamer is going to have the portal, and then you're going to buy the other content libraries to be a tile in that portal. Like, so as you mentioned, like in 10 years from now, Disney and Amazon are not going to be paired up together, for example, and Disney and Amazon are going to have their own apps.
I need to make a correction. I read it wrong. It is just Disney and Warner Brothers. Prime is not with anybody.
Okay. Yeah. But what's going to happen, I would say, would be you're still going to pay for the Amazon subscription. You're just going to access it through the Disney app because it's just going to be a tile.
That's what Prime already does. Prime and Apple both do that.
Yeah, exactly. Right. So, but what's going to happen is I think rather than actually opening up different apps, all these major apps are just going to have tiles in each other's app.
Yeah.
And you're just like, instead of having 10 different apps, you're going to have one app that accesses all the different, as you mentioned, like quote unquote channels.
Yeah, I think ultimately what will happen, kind of what you said, I believe at the end of it, it'll just be Netflix and Prime standing. And Apple will merge with maybe Apple or something, or Disney will. And then underneath it'll be like, here's all the channels that we have ability to go with. And then they just kind of share a split on the ability for their channels to work and whatnot.
Apple and Disney make the most sense because of their long-standing business alliances.
Yeah.
Also, like Apple has the ability to buy any of these companies if they really wanted to, but
yeah. And Apple needs to. I mean, I think the Apple library has been good. I've heard good things about Black Matter. Palm Royale finished off very sadly. It was in a good way, but it's just a very sad finale. I'm not going to spoil Palm Royale because I want more people to watch it. And Loot with Maya Rudolph has been really good. So I do think they've had a good run of shows, and the shows that you watched with your partner, the pilot one.
The pilot one.
the one in the fighter pilots.
Oh, Masters of the Air. Masters of the Air.
Masters of the Air. Yeah.
You mean the Band of Brothers?
Band of Brothers. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that'll do good. I mean, the biggest part, you talked about the sports rights. I think the biggest thing that was confirmed today is that Netflix is going to be airing 2 Christmas games for the next 3 years. So Netflix now has made a major pounce into sports here in the last 3 months. We know they have the WWE rights coming up in January, and they have the international pay-per-view rights, and then in America they have the rights to Raw. And then we have this Mike Tyson fight coming. We had the Brady roast that just happened. And now they have maybe a Monday Night Football game with whatever Christmas happens, but they'll have these Christmas games. And as I've learned, even though I don't think Netflix has the best content, it is the king right now, because when that Brady roast happened, everyone's like, you're watching the Brady roast? You're watching the Brady roast? Same thing's going to happen with this Tyson fight, because people have the most access to Netflix. Them getting the NFL is an absolute game changer for them, and then having WWE in there. The question I will have is, will these NFL games be on demand? That's the thing I can't have, because you have these NFL games on demand. That's going to be very, very interesting. But the Netflix start of a partnership with the NFL is just a start. And I have seen a lot of people that are in the States specifically. I don't know how it's going to affect us up in here in Canada, if those games will be on Netflix, because, for example, for those that are unaware, with the Amazon games and the Peacock games, those still air on our normal cable up here. So as far as we go, it's pretty much DAZN and then cable. And even those games that are on Amazon exclusive or Peacock exclusive still run in DAZN up here. So I don't know how this works for us up here in Canada, but if you're in the States, more or less you need YouTube TV, Peacock, Amazon, now Netflix.
Yeah, I guess to watch every football game.
Yeah, watch every football game. So there's some Americans, which is the primary market, obviously, for the NFL. They're a little frustrated of how spread out it is, but I mean, you're going to do it. And primarily, I would say a majority of people have most of these streaming services anyways. I'm assuming most Americans have Netflix, most have Prime.
Yes.
And then if you're an NFL fan, you're going to get YouTube TV to have Sunday Ticket in the first place. Peacock may be the one you don't have, but the Peacock one is very limited of how many games are on there, and it's typically just playoff games.
So, like, can people just not get like Red Zone anymore? Or
Yeah,
like Sunday.
it's
So Sunday.
It's on
Ticket.
YouTube. It's on YouTube TV
Sunday Ticket's only available on YouTube TV.
in the States. Yes.
You can't just go to you can't just call your cable provider. You can't call DirecTV.
It left DirecTV. It left DirecTV. It's only on YouTube TV now. Yeah.
That's really annoying.
Mm-hmm. Apparently, YouTube TV was really good, very successful for Sunday Ticket last year, and they have these little, for people that aren't crazy like me and have 30 TVs going on with all the football games and projectors and everything like that. They have these boxes that you can put into your TV to show the games, and then when you want to go to one, you can go to it. So apparently, the YouTube TV was very successful last year.
Oh, okay. If people figured out how to use it, like I couldn't imagine some people of the older generations being like, I got to go to what app to find what game on what day.
I mean, this is inevitable though, and because when Amazon and Peacock got the rights to it, it was a game changer for these rights. And you're seeing it with the NBA and the NHL and these other leagues. UFC will be up soon. And I'm predicting, I think UFC will go to Netflix because of the WWE relationship, but also the difference of being on ESPN Plus compared to being on Netflix or an Amazon is you get all the data of your customers, of what they watch, what they like. Specifically for the Amazon customers, they get a data of what they watch and what they buy. And that is much more valuable than just airing random commercials. Yeah, and definitely. So Peacock saw that when they aired the playoff game this past year. I believe it was Kansas City and Miami. They got all this data that they can use now for their customers. Amazon's been doing that, and now Netflix is going to have that. And so for everyone's like, oh, well, why can't I just be here? No, these companies now know what they can do, and that's why with this NBA deal, by Peacock, it's not been announced yet, but why the Peacock side was so interesting to them, because Turner had gone back and forth that they're going to put stuff on Max, and where the streaming services for that is a Bleacher Report, whereas with NBC and any other sport that goes there, you at least have a firm side with Peacock that's going to air the Olympics on there, airs WWE, airs football, airs soccer. So you know they have a long-term basis of showing a live product.
This is going to get more confusing before it gets better.
It doesn't have to be confusing.
Well, it doesn't have to be, but I think it's going to be made confusing.
And I think I will say this, like everyone last year was like, this game's on Peacock, this game's on Peacock. The NFL was very precise on consistently saying Kansas City and Miami only on Peacock consistently every single game. So it's your fault for not being as up to date on the consumer. And maybe I'm just saying this because I am on the broadcast side of things. So I'm the type of person that would be promoting this type of stuff. So I am a little bit more biased to lead towards the broadcaster. I should put that asterisk in the top when I am talking about this type of stuff.
There is, you know what, you're absolutely right in terms of like how many times to tell people.
But I get it. There's, your granddad or your grandma or whoever that's going to watch a game and they're going to be like, I just wanted to watch this Dolphins game on CBS. It's like, well, it's not on CBS. You have to go here for it. So I get that can be a little frustrating. So I understand.
Well, I mean, we're in the 1% of basically all of the things that we talk about in this show because we talk about how deliberate things are. When there are people who just turn things on and just let things happen.
Yeah.
There's people who don't do any research about movies. They don't even know what movies are coming out. They don't know when. Like my partner's brother asked like last week, like, hey, can we go to Dune 2? And it's like, I don't even know if Dune 2 is in the theater anymore. Like, we got to look that up. It'll
be on Max next week.
I get that, but we want to watch it in theaters.
No, right? I know. I'm just saying next week's on Max, so that's why I don't know if it'll be in the theater anymore.
Man, like we had, 15 or 16 weeks opportunity to go see it. So,
dude, how's about the fact that Fall Guy has already been pulled from the movies? 2 weeks out, pulled. Like, it's a box office bomb. I'm like, well, you pulled it after 2 weeks.
Well, it's the same thing with analytics in sports, right? You're kind of min-maxing things. So if you can tell when a movie's not going to pop, like, and that movie wasn't going to start making back its budget because people started finding it 5 weeks after it was out in theaters.
Yeah, I get that one. You got Planet of the Apes that came out that did okay, and then
that did great. That got like 50 or 60 million.
That's on we got to get the movie draft up for next week. I think is Mad Max this week or next week? I think it's next week, right?
I think it's next week. I thought it was June even.
No, it's in May. I have to see what's coming out because it's obviously May lawn. So there is somewhat of a big movie coming out, I'm assuming, this year. Look how much we know. We're great. But, it's If. If is the big movie this year, which is not getting... Well, IGN gave it a 4, and right now on IMDb, it's got a 7. So I don't know what to believe.
What we talked about with these rom coms, like this is a movie that it's not going to be critically well received, but people like it. That's fine.
If kids like it, which is the main market, then like if I take my niece or my nephew and they have a good time, that's all I really care about. And if I'm a parent and I get to take my kids there and then they have a good time with it, that's all that matters. That's why, I know Adam picks him. He's like, here's my review of Josh. I took my nephew to it and he liked it, so it's fine. It's like, well, yeah, that's the point though. Whereas like if I take my nephew or my nieces to see Migration, which I didn't personally think was all that great, but if they walked out of it and they had a great time with Migration and then they want to buy a toy from Migration, the movie won.
Mm-hmm.
The movie won. So it doesn't matter what your critical review of it is. If the kids walk out of it and they're happy and they want to go to the park and see ducks, or if they want a duck stuffy, they win.
Yeah, that's basically it. That's all of media is just finding a niche market who will like your product enough to buy it. Yeah. And it doesn't have like that's obviously not Adam's niche market or maybe even other critics' niche market, but guaranteed someone out there will like it. It's the same thing with like My Little Pony. Like, someone out there is going to like it, and we know who.
All right. Yes. A few more things here from the rundown. Mr. and Mrs. Smith will be returning, but it will not have Maya Erskine or Donald Glover return.
What's the point?
If you watch the show, you watch the show, right?
I've watched half of it, and I understand.
So the idea is, I think, it's just telling the different stories of the Mr. and Mrs. Smiths. So
sure,
I'm interested on where they go with it. It did good ratings for Amazon, so we'll see. Donald Glover re-released his album and has a tour coming out. So as I said to a few people,
he's a little busy.
What Community movie? It was just funny though. Like 2 days beforehand, Donald Glover's like, "Why is everyone getting mad at me for the Community movie? Like everyone else has got busy schedules." And then it's like Donald Glover summer tour. It's like, Donald, come on.
Well, the question I have about Mr. and Mrs. Smith in particular was, and I haven't finished the show yet, so don't come at me. But did people want to see the franchise, or do people want to see the actors? And if the
I
actors were
wanted to see Donald Glover. I did.
yeah, but even just, I mean, I'm assuming you finished the show. Like,
I did.
did you like the show because of the premise, kind of like John Wick and the Assassin, Brotherhood kind of thing, or do you want to see it because Maya Erskine and Donald Glover were like really good roles?
I think they were good, but if I had to pick a Prime show that stuck more with me this year, I would say it was Fallout.
Yeah. So in that case, like the idea of having Mr. and Mrs. Smith without the two main characters is kind of a moot point because you could just name it whatever you wanted to. Like it doesn't matter at this point.
Yeah.
So
So, I mean, and there was the idea that it will be the anthology show, and they introduced that concept of different Mr. and Mrs. Smiths.
definitely in the beginning of the show, they introduced it as like people, like new groups of people get kind of thrown together.
Yeah.
And you're not supposed to
So-
know their real names. Like,
Yeah.
okay.
There'll be a live action Tomb Raider series at Amazon Prime, and it will be written by Phoebe Waller-Bridge, but she will not be starring as Lara Croft. No idea who will be Lara Croft at this point.
Oh man, the same people who were upset about Hades was getting ready to get their.
I don't even want to get into that.
But they were getting ready to get their pitchforks ready for this show. If it was like if she was going to be Lara Croft, and it was like,
God.
oh my god, people give it a break.
Yeah, the hit on it very, very shortly. The Hades stuff this week, Devin and I had a text exchange about it, was just absolutely idiotic.
Oh yeah, the whole, but it's such a small subgroup of people who are so loud about it, and the general population needs to constantly fight this group down so they don't end up, poisoning other people or spreading these views that are just completely insane. So
yeah. Also at Amazon, Roadhouse 2 in the works, and Jake Gyllenhaal will return.
Yeah, that's cool. I'm really happy. It seemed like it was a fun movie that popped for a lot of people. It's like it was nostalgia, or is a remake done right? I suppose. Great, happy for people.
There'll be a rom com coming out January 30th called "You're Cordially Invited" with Reese Witherspoon and Will Ferrell. I mean, not hard.
Did they do the I Dream of Jeannie movie?
No, that's Nicole Kidman.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I thought they already had a movie together. That's fine.
Also at Amazon, there will be a Legally Blonde prequel series in the works there.
Cool.
Yeah. Did you watch any of the Megalopolis trailer at all?
No, but I just keep hearing about weird things. Friggin'.
I don't want to watch anything because I just want to go in live.
Yeah, but no, there's some weird stuff coming about Francis Ford's Coppola behavior on set.
Yeah,
but in terms of the movie, like I do want to see it with. I don't want to know anything about it. I just want. I don't want to
know. It's one of the few times it's not like when we do a Star Wars or Marvel property or DC. Like I can actually get through this without seeing the trailer. I don't need to see the trailer for this.
I want to go in not having any kind of opinion, and then coming out of that movie being like, that was a dumpster fire, that was brilliant, that was like so misunderstood. I don't want to know anyone's opinions on it. I just want to go in and just like, is this 40-year movie? Like, what kind of art are we going to see here?
And you're literally hearing like, this is either going to take his career to another level or devalue his career.
Well, he had to sell off like the wineries in order to get this friggin' movie done. Like, he's had some weird things with money though. So
Gerald Butler is in talks to star in Empire, an Empire State Building action thriller. The film follows a firefighter and a tactical officer who must put their personal troubles aside to rescue hostages and save the Empire State Building.
Sean Zone
and Nick Zone. We're gonna the Nick Zone's in that area too.
The Sean Nick Zone is like, it's basically a circle right now.
On unfortunate news, Yellow Jacket season 3 has begun filming.
I didn't even watch season 2. So
man, I've never watched a show so much in my life.
What about,
you get the premiere to drag me back, and if the premiere is bad, I'm out.
I think that's very fair. What do you hate watch more, Yellow Jackets or the morning show?
No, the morning show is at least kind of fun because I get to make jokes with Senator about.
Okay.
But I don't like it, and I will get upset when it's back. Yellow Jackets, I actually just was furious that I had to watch it, and it just dragged on. I actually hated it. Morning show's a fun hate.
You have these shows with the premise is it's a unique premise. We don't get it very often, and then they go and fuck it up by adding a sex cult to it.
Yeah. Morning show has yet to do that, but that'd be a very interesting turn. What else do we got here? Wizards of Waverly Place is coming back for a sequel series that doesn't really hit to our genre. But anyone that's excited for that, great. Other unfortunate. Speaking about hate watches, Murders in the Building dropped a new trailer. That's another hate watch. I'm like, no.
Yeah, isn't someone famous coming in for this season or something?
They go to everywhere. There's a bunch. Zach Galifianakis is in this. The thing I love though, and a star-studded cast, and they put Richard Kind in the star-studded cast. I'm like, okay, Richard Kind, I like that. I do like putting Richard Kind in that.
Okay, give him some shine. That's awesome.
Eugene Levy's in it. Eva Longoria, Zach Galifianakis, Melissa McCarthy, Molly Shannon, Jane Lynch, Richard Kind. Yeah. Speaking of really quick of Melissa McCarthy, Unfrosted. God, that sucked.
What's Unfrosted?
That was the Seinfeld movie.
Oh, right. Yeah.
But I will tell you now, because it's been 2 weeks, spoilers, because I know you're never going to watch it. There is one scene that made me not give the movie 0 stars. This movie takes place in the 60s, right?
Okay.
And they work for a brand. So obviously you have to advertise that brand.
Mm-hmm.
So they go to Don Draper and Roger's in the meeting as well. And that's the best 5 minutes of the whole fucking movie.
They're as the characters?
They're as Roger and Don. It's amazing.
I'm just going to watch it on YouTube. I'm going to skip the rest of the movie though.
Yeah.
Also,
it's great. But it's Don's this needs to be a sexy French thing to sell this.
Jerry Seinfeld, kind of a villain right now. Hot take, apparently.
Yeah, a bunch of students walked out of him at his Duke speech. It seems like he's backtracking a lot of stuff now.
Really weird statements, and just a guy who's out of touch with the real world, I suppose.
Yeah. Agatha All Along, September 18th on Disney Plus. I did like what they did. All these title changes, we talked about it last week. It was a troll. So I do like that idea of bringing it full circle with the Agatha All Along thing and having people why are they changing it? It's different marketing, but it's marketing nonetheless.
The behind the boardroom speak, there was probably 1 or 2 name changes that was necessary for where the direction of the show is going that they announced, and then they realized that they had with all these rewrites and stuff, they kept changing the name, and then that became a marketing opportunity. I don't think the first
Sonic thing.
Yeah, I don't think the first 1 or 2 times was on purpose. It was totally by accident. At this point, it's on purpose, but I don't think it started that way.
We talked about what Marvel shows Disney will cut. We got 3 announced. So Agatha on September 18th. I'm interested in it. I did like Catherine Hahn's portrayal of Agatha. And we got Aubrey Plaza, who is, if Aubrey's in something, I'm going to watch it. Ironheart is coming out. That we debated if that was going to get cut or not, but Ironheart is still coming out. And then Daredevil is out. Don't have a date for Ironheart. Daredevil is out March 2025. The newest news with that, though, is if you remember, that was an 18 episode count. It has been cut in half to 9.
And massive rewrites.
Yes, but potentially it sounds like we're going to have Jessica Jones in this, and we're going to have the Punisher in this.
Who's the Punisher?
Bernthal, baby.
Let's go.
And Christian Ritter is still Jessica Jones.
Awesome. That's cool.
Yeah. So happy to see all that. I guess
no Luke Cage, though?
I haven't heard anything on Luke Cage or Iron Fist yet.
Okay.
I guess I might have to go and catch up on some of these Netflix shows that we stopped watching.
Are they still on Netflix?
They're on Disney now.
Okay.
Mortal Kombat 2 finished filming in February. Mortal Kombat 2 releases October 24th, 2025.
Oh, that's lame. That's so lame.
They just need more time to plan how they're going to get rid of Cole Young.
Okay, you get your shots in because
Dude,
it only
it's
happened.
just funny. Like literally every comment that they mentioned, from Variety to Discussing Film to Hollywood Reporter, which is like, just make sure Cole Young's dead. Every single one.
It was an interesting opportunity, choice to create a brand new character for the movie, and then him being the most hated thing since
And
sliced
kill
bread.
Prince Goro.
Yeah, but hey, now that we have a better understanding of who both Sub-Zero and Reptile are, or was it Raiden?
Yeah.
Who's Yabushige's Raiden?
I
Or is he
believe
Reptile? I can't
so.
remember.
Maybe he's No, he might be Raiden. I think you're right.
Yeah, let's go. We're
Yeah.
gonna be pumped for Raiden.
Yeah. Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow will star Millie Alcock. People know her from House of the Dragon, and that will be out June 26, 2026.
Okay.
So I don't even think this is filmed yet, and this is still coming out before. Oh no, never mind, 2026. But maybe, who knows? Mortal Kombat gets pushed back. But yeah, so next year we'll have Superman, and then we'll have Supergirl. I do like what Gunn is doing, opposed to Marvel, where it's like content. He's doing kind of, at least at this point, one film a year.
We talked about that with the MCU, just building up and letting these characters breathe, and then give everyone their own movie, and then you team them up.
Yeah.
Don't team people up if you don't have a movie yet. That's basically the rule.
Netflix put out some stills for their Terminator anime series, which comes out August 29th on Netflix. That's worth an episode watch.
I don't even know what this is. That's kind of cool.
Yeah.
Although I'm so far out of the loop with Terminator lore, like,
I will say Netflix, you would probably be better knowing this than I would, but I would say the anime, not the anime live actions, but the actual anime has gotten decent reception from the anime that Netflix has been putting out. Specifically, like the League of Legends one, it's very well received.
oh, Arcane, yeah, they have a
Arcane,
few. They got a few bangers. This Blue-Eyed Samurai one was a big hit. Pluto, obviously, I was like a jumbo fan of Pluto. They've also had some really contemporary ones like JJK and JoJo's Bizarre Adventures too. So it is probably the second best streaming service for anime, minus having Crunchyroll. So
yeah,
it's awesome.
HBO is adding a. They had the first trailer released today for the Dune prequel series called Dune Prophecy, which will release this year on Max.
Okay, let's go. Dune Universe.
Yeah. Still haven't seen Dune 2. So, and unfortunately, I know a lot of people are going to get mad at me. I'm probably going to see it when it lands on Max/Crave. I'm sorry. It's just the way it's going to happen.
Yeah, I think that's all right. It's fine. Whatever. You do you. It's a great movie, though.
We got a first look of the Last of Us 2. Holy crap. These sets for Seattle are unbelievable.
Do they really? I haven't seen them yet.
I'll have to send you some of them after. They look so good.
Good.
What else do we got on here? Oh, we had a new trailer for Wicked. We had the Assassin's Creed Shadows, which, I'm not gonna lie, looks pretty good.
Worst kept. It was the worst kept secret for like the last 8 months.
Yeah.
That it was going to be a ninja game. Now, whether or not it's going to stand up to the other ninja games that we have lately, different story though.
Yeah, it is Ubisoft. It's a very hit and miss. It's very hit and miss with Ubisoft.
They will fuck it up. Don't worry.
And then we also had the Hunt for Gollum, Lord of the Rings movie that was announced.
Yeah, people are not excited. People are really upset.
Will Ferrell will star in his first scripted comedy series, Golf, where he plays a fictional golf legend, and this will be on Netflix. I mean, I'm here for it. I don't know how many other people are going to be here, but if you have Will, I'm in.
Yeah, I think it's worth a shot. I don't know where he's been trending lately in terms of like the public consciousness. Like, is he at his peak? He's not at his peak, right? But like, is he?
No, I think he's Will.
Is he just famous?
People are happy.
He's just famous for being famous now, kind of, right? Like,
I can't remember like what's the last thing that Will did that was like really well received?
Was it that?
Obviously,
he had the movie with Julie Louis-Dreyfus.
No, that bombed.
Okay.
Quiz Lady was fun. I mean, he was part of Succession. He did produce Succession.
Well, sure, but I mean, I want to know what, like, he is like when I see him in a movie, I don't instantly go like, "Holy
Barbie.
crap!"
He was in Barbie.
Yeah, but he just played the same guy from Lego.
So you're talking about? I guess we're looking at like the last time he was in a movie that was like
Yes, because it wasn't Sherlock and Holmes or whatever with John C.
Lego.
Reilly. It might be.
Yeah, I think it's Lego movie. So
Might be.
2014, so about 10 years. Because since then, hasn't really done a lot of acting. Really, Downhill was bad. I like Eurovision. I think that's fun with him and Rachel
That might be
McAdams.
that might be the last peak. Yeah, the last bump he's had.
That I thought Eurovision was good. The Shriek Next Door that he did, that Apple TV one with him and Paul Rudd, I thought would be really good, and it was very mediocre.
Mm.
Quiz Lady, like I said, he has a nice cameo in there, but yeah, I guess this golf one will be interesting to see where that goes. All right, the news that broke during this pod that I've been trying to hold off and tell Devin about. Another John Wick spinoff coming, Dev. With Donnie Yen's character.
Oh yes, okay.
And it films in Hong Kong.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Twist my rubber arm. Anytime I get
in.
home, I go down such.
And the movie takes place right after John Wick 4.
I'm in.
Yeah.
I'm in. I have so much faith in this. Now, to be fair, I did not watch the
we have
Continental
faith
show.
in John Wick film.
I
John
didn't
Wick
watch
film.
Continental. Did you watch all of them?
I didn't watch any of them.
Maybe we need to commit to watching one of them and seeing what happens.
Yeah.
Because I'd say we're bigger than average fans, so we might get more out of it than a critic would.
Yeah, probably. I like in the direction the John Wick universe is going, and they've done a good job of building it up. Obviously, like we said, we haven't seen the Continental, but Natasha Lyonne has been cast in the Fantastic Four as a secret role. So now this is the third actor that's been part of a secret role. John Malkovich is a secret role. Paul Walter Hauser is a secret role, and now Natasha Lyonne is a secret role.
Okay, one of them's Galactus and one of them's Surfer.
Galactus is announced and Silver Surfer's announced.
Really?
Silver Surfer's Julia Gardner.
Okay. So.
And the Galactus is that guy from Game of Thrones. I can't remember his name.
Has Doom been announced?
Doom has not been announced. So maybe Malkovich is Doom?
No, it's too old for that.
I don't think Paul Walter Hauser and Natasha Lyonne are Doom.
Natasha, I don't know.
And I know Franklin Richards is a rumored to be in this, but obviously he's a kid. So
sure.
Here's a hypothesis that I'm wondering. If they travel to the future, could John Malkovich possibly be a future Mr. Fantastic, and Natasha Lyonne possibly be a Sue Storm,
right?
And Paul Walter Hauser possibly be the Thing in the future?
That's a really good theory. I think that makes more sense than us trying to shoehorn them into other characters, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah.
Because it's set in the 60s, right?
60s, yeah.
Okay.
Danny DeVito has said he would love to play Wario in the Mario sequel. Make it happen.
Yes, absolutely.
Do it. It's so obvious.
Well, no, he should have been friggin' Detective Pikachu.
Yes. All right, we have a few more news here that just dropped. A new South Park special making fun of Ozempic is coming out on May 24th, so I'm here for that.
Yeah, cool.
I kind of like that Trey and Matt, I don't even know if seasons of South Park are happening anymore. They just get to make these specials and do South Park things and then do whatever else they want to do.
I think it makes a lot of sense for them to transition into the kind of topical show, like they make fun of something every 3 months that's really big in the news. I think that'd be a great role because it's just more current. It's easier to do. Yeah, makes sense.
And then the last news that just broke is Netflix is doing their upfront. So we've gotten a few things like we talked about the Will Ferrell one. We talked about Netflix getting the NFL. So they're doing a few things right now. It's official. Happy Gilmore 2 will be coming to Netflix, starring Adam Sandler. I don't know how I feel about this. Will I watch it? Of course I'm going to watch it, but I don't know how I feel about it. I can almost 100% guarantee that Tiger or some other golfers will be in this.
Mm-hmm.
See, you have to have Michael McDonald come back. Is it Michael McDonald who Shooter is?
Oh, I don't know. I can't remember. I know you're talking. Yeah.
I'm going to get the Shooter's name correctly, but you almost have to have Shooter almost have Happy kind of be like a one-hit wonder, and Shooter's just been dominating all this. Christopher McDonald. and then
That'd
like
make
just
a lot
have
of
like
sense.
shooters just like been dominating the circuit. Or
Yeah, or
something.
he's like the president of the PGA or something.
Yeah, like Happy won, got his
Or
grandma the
Live.
house, and
Yeah.
then he backed out and maybe bought a hockey team or something like that. And now there's like one big tournament and he's like going against Shooter one more time or something. Or Shooter has a son and he has a son. I don't know.
The best part about getting older that I've realized is that this movie, in no way, shape, or form, will affect how I think about the original.
Mhm.
And I don't care about these new movies ruining the legacy of old movies because I get to choose to watch this whether I want. Like I'm never going to accidentally stumble upon this movie and make myself disappointed or upset. I get to choose when I want to watch it. And if it's
Yeah.
bad, then I'm kind of assuming it's going to be bad. So
Yeah.
whatever. Great. Okay.
All right. Now we're just going to get out here on the last thing here really quick. I said we want to go 2 hours, but Dev, we just like talking, I guess.
God damn it.
The last one is what we also saw. So we won't go very long on this, but I saw Toast of London with Matt Berry. I don't know why it took me so long to find this out. He won a BAFTA for this, by the way.
Okay.
And
It's a must watch.
It's for us, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, you'll thoroughly enjoy it. It gets me mad that he's won a BAFTA. I just want him to have an Emmy for Shadows so bad. And Jeremy Allen White, and everyone from the Bears like in his way.
Well, do awards mean everything?
No. The Wire never won anything, right?
And it's just
Better
hard to
Call
like,
Saul just got swept of never winning anything.
yeah, it's really hard to go up against Succession and then all these other shows want to avoid Succession because everyone just knows they're going to win everything.
John Hamm got 1 Emmy for playing Don Draper.
Yeah, but arguably he got it like at the end though, which was more important.
Yeah, he should take the Jeff Daniels one away from him.
But Newsroom had a moment, and that's okay.
It did. But yeah, I saw Toast of London. That was great. I've been playing FC24 and watched like a few minutes of Doctor Who. See if I'll probably watch a little bit more this week now that we have a little bit of a break in between. I've been watching Hacks, which has been great.
I finished God of War. I finished the main story of God of War. I'm going to start playing the DLC now. And then, but what I ranted about this a lot last week in terms of game design and AAA and whatever. And then I went and watched both the Donkey review and the Honest trailer and the Zero Punctuation about God of War and hit on everything I've been saying in terms of like just the presentation is A+, the amount of technical capability is A+, and then there's just some things that are just so antiquated game design that's just so frustrating to have to like crawl through tunnels and stuff like that. But as a piece of art, as a piece of media, like that people made with their hands and their minds, like that's really transcendent. And the stories, like I'm such a God of War, like I'm such a first party PlayStation fan. And it's really hard to deny that. And it just sucks because like there's other AAA games I want to play, but because a lot of them play similarly, I have to make decisions as to like not get burnt out. And so like I'm not going to play Horizon Zero Dawn because I'm already playing an open world action game.
Yeah.
I'm not going to play Jedi Survivor because I already played Sekiro and I already played the first one, So like when you hit all these like genres, you don't want to. You want to save your like energy for the big examples, and God of War is a big example. Uncharted 5, if it were to happen, is a big example. So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we'll have Summer Games Fest coming up in June, so we'll have a nice. We'll kind of give an update on the summer movie draft next week, and then maybe a few other things because we don't have the big encompassing show to really talk about next week. So it'll be a little bit of a lighter show next week, but look to find us here live on YouTube and hopefully an audio platform next week. And until next time, folks, cheers and enjoy the day, people.
Thank you for listening to the Fresh Take Network. Follow us on social media platforms at Fresh Take 42.